One is an Emmy award-winning writer and comedian. The other is a doctor of psychology with a master's in nutrition. Together, they're the siblings who join forces to shine a light on growing up with weight issues. We welcome the authors T-Shirt Swim Club, Stories from Being Fat in a Thin World, Ian Karmel and Dr. Alisa Karmel. Good to have you both with us.
Thank you.
We're used to having just you, Ian.
Just me.
Just you?
We're a little more serious. I brought a doctor along, and because there's a book, I'm doing a leg cross. Yeah.
Gotta love it. That makes you look more serious.
It makes me look erudite, I think. Yeah.
The memoir is really, really good. It's fascinating to learn about, the pain of growing up overweight.
Yeah.
And then talk to me about bringing your sister in to kind of give the other side of it.
Well, it was a completely natural fit when we were, we would talk about this stuff almost never when we were kids, only kind of when we were adults, and we'd gotten to sort of a healthier place in our lives, and we were looking back. We realized we never talked about. We both grew up fat.
Yeah.
In the same house, in the same time. And we started talking about it.
We're looking at the kids here.
That's us right there. Yeah, looking very dapper. But we started talking about it, and we realized, I dealt with being a fat kid by becoming a stand-up comedian. Alisa, I think, channeled a lot of that energy into getting a doctorate in psychology and going into nutrition counseling and that kind of thing. Two very different paths, but fueled by the same thing. And we were like, I think we have, a story to tell here. And so we started writing a book.
I love it. And Alisa, when you looked at what your brother wrote, did some of it surprise you? Did some of it make you go, oh, I didn't realize he was going through that kind of pain?
I think it was for the both of us.
Yeah.
Both of us had our own stories with fatness, and we didn't really talk about it growing up because we didn't really have awareness of it.
Right.
So going through writing this book, it was a lot of, oh, okay, good to know we were going through this together and yet so separately.
Yeah, absolutely. Your parents, both very supportive of you.
Yeah.
But also didn't really talk to you about the weight issue.
No, that's the thing. In our house, we were very supported. It was a very loving environment.
Grew up in Beaverton.
Grew up in Beaverton, Oregon. Shout out to Beaverton, Oregon, top of the food chain, the jewel of the Pacific Northwest. I think everyone agrees. It was just a very loving home. It was it was like a refuge. It was a place in our lives where we never had to feel like we were different or bad or anything like that because of our bodies. The strange thing about that is that means when you go out into the real world, the only feedback you get about your body is negative, right? If at home it's neutral, and that was beautiful and positive, but the only time you go out into the world, it's just like it's wrong that you're fat.
Right.
You go to the store to buy a shirt, you walk in, the people at Abercrombie and Fitch are like sneering at your, fat teenage body, like, what are you doing here?
Right.
Sort of thing, like you've snuck into a woman's dorm in college. You know what I mean? It's like that same energy, like, get out of here, interloper. Like
I'm looking at your football picture. You were a popular kid, so it wasn't like you were not popular in school.
It's very true. The other thing about this book, I had a beautiful childhood. I had a beautiful time in high school. I had a wonderful time. I think you did too, right?
I had a little bit of a different story, though. I think for me, I wasn't so popular, so it was navigating the halls.
I think for girls, it's different.
Exactly, exactly. My weight was a deficit for most of my upbringing, so it was trying to find the acceptance in the social field without having the popularity.
Yeah.
And so I had to kind of find my place, find my identity separately from the fatness, which was really difficult as a kid.
Yeah.
Which is what we try to address in the book. Is it is difficult, and having home as a space of neutrality, that refuge that my brother's saying, is so important.
Yeah.
Because there is so much negative feedback elsewhere.
There's archetypes as like a fat dude. You can sort of be like the fat best friend from the rom-com. You can lean into that role, which is kind of what I did as a fat kid, and then also in my career as a fat adult. You're like, let me just be the funny guy.
Yeah.
Right? Which is great because that's a fun person to be. But.
You work for James Corden.
Yeah.
Oh my God, what an incredible show.
Thank you very much.
Clearly. But you wrote a lot of fat jokes for him.
Yeah. He's a fat kid too. He remains a fat adult. We both do.
Yeah.
I wrote fat jokes for him all through, like in the monologue. In a sketch, if something wasn't, we couldn't crack it, you're like, let's go to a fat joke. It's an easy shorthand when you're a fat person, and it's also an easy shorthand in entertainment.
Right.
Which is a double-edged sword. A, you get laughs, you're in on it, you're at least participating in your own destruction, so you have a hand in it. But B, you're also trading on the same system that's been used to sort of dehumanize and devalue you.
Alisa, I know Ian has talked about going to the doctor and seeing the doctor and how if you go in with a broken arm, they'll still see you as obese, and that's part of your problem.
Yeah.
We need a different approach, right? Don't we?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's time that the providers learn how to treat the patient as if they're a whole package. I mean, it's not just the weight, right? And a lot of doctors are trying. You know, they have the knowledge of how to, you know, treat the sickness, treat the diagnosis, but they don't have the knowledge of how to treat a fat patient and how to deal with weight in more of a neutral way, because it doesn't always have to be the focus of a visit. And that's what I'm hoping to communicate as providers. It's important to address health, but it doesn't always require weight.
Right. At what point, Ian, did you say, I've got to change my ways? Because you also talk about your addiction to alcohol and that too, because the food led to alcohol, vice versa.
I sought comfort in everything, you know, in overeating, binge drinking. There was a time I was scheduled to be on this show when I was like in my very early 30s, when I was in the very thick of this, and I got hammered the night before. And
we remember that very well.
Yeah, right. I was supposed to be here. I wasn't here. It was waiting for Karmel. I never showed up. I was hungover. I probably woke up at 1 in the afternoon and ate 3 breakfast burritos, you know, and then went back to bed. I was dealing with a lot of pain. And going back to what Alisa said, I never went to the doctor. It was easier to stick my head in the sand.
Right.
The reality...
Because you knew how their approach was. You saw them as looking at you as this obese person and nothing else.
I knew 2 things, right? I knew one thing, that when I went to the doctor, that was what I was going to be treated like a problem rather than a patient. And the other thing I knew was that the way I was living was incredibly self-destructive and unhealthy. Not just the way I was eating, but drinking and all those things. There's very healthy fat people. I know that like some people hear that and they're like, no, it can't happen. But there are people who we would consider fat who are healthy, who are active, you know, who are like very good in their bodies like that. I was not that kind of person. I knew I was being very self-destructive. So it took me thinking I was having a heart attack.
Right.
Here in Portland, after I'd been very healthy
You were ready to dial 911.
I was standing on the street corner outside of my friend's apartment with 911 dialed into my phone, my heart pounding in my chest like a drummer going crazy, finger hovering over the call button, not wanting to hit it, because I knew if I did, an ambulance would come and I would actually have to confront everything that was going on in my life, everything I had been ignoring, and I didn't hit it, because I didn't want to interrupt that comfort or convenience.
Yeah.
Right.
But I called my mom, and then later that she was like, I think you should go get this checked out. Later that night, I did go to the doctor. I had an incredibly high blood pressure, and that was sort of the kick in the butt I needed, where it was like, yo, this is reality. This is you. Nobody else suffers because, I mean, your family and your friends do, but like, if somebody dies because of this, you're the person who dies because of this. If you don't address this, you're the person who's not going to get a chance to fix it again later. So that was kind of the moment that I needed to like be motivated enough to push through this.
I know everyone's going to ask you this question about it wasn't medication that helped you lose the weight, but actually changing the way you ate.
It was indeed, yeah. This was pre-Ozempic.
Right.
I can't say that I wouldn't have taken Ozempic if Ozempic was around. I think that's, it was a very tomato-based approach.
I love that
Eating
picture.
healthy, I think, is the point here.
We talk about this a lot. You know, we're in a constant dialogue about like the Ozempic stuff, where we just did it through eating less, moving more, eating better.
And you did it as well. The same
I
time?
mean, we were losing weight at the same time. We had a nice dialogue throughout the whole experience, but I would also say that when you use these medications, it's not just a fast pass. Like, you still have to change your food, and when folks don't commit to those health behaviors, it's not going to have a good sustainable outcome. And that's what I'm really trying to advocate right now, is these medications are new, they have risks, and you still need to be in touch with your body and why you got there in the first place.
You you're honest too about your relationship with women in the book. How you were a jerk.
Yeah, a lot of the time,
Yeah. But then you met your future wife, and she was like, you were finally in a good place.
I was getting to a better place as well. Yeah, there was a way that I don't think this is true of every fat person at all, but this was definitely true of me. Where I was growing up, felt very rejected by the opposite, by people I wanted to date.
Right.
A lot of that was because I rejected myself before I had an opportunity to even approach these people. Because I saw the way that fat people were portrayed in society, right? I'm like, oh, we're never the lead in the rom-com. We're always the best friend, right? So in my head, I'm like, they're never gonna like me. And then once I started to get success in comedy, I got a little more confident, and then all of a sudden women started paying more attention to me. I assumed it was because I was successful. I think the reality is because I finally had like a little bit of self-confidence and a little bit of like belief in myself. but I still saw it as this transactional relationship where I'm like, they like me because I'm successful, and I really only like them because they're beautiful, and then that lets me validate myself through their beauty, which is like a very...
It's dependency.
It's a dependency, and it's a very unbalanced way to like approach a relationship, and I was doing that. I think that's a problem with like a lot of people. I think you look at like what Jonah Hill, you know, went through trying to control his like surfer girlfriend.
Yeah.
I think like that, the basis of that, the core of that is this insecure fat kid like sitting at the core of it. So, you know, I started to get healthier as a person. I started to get to a better place. And a lot of that was also just finally confronting. That's kind of a theme of a lot of this, is like confronting things. I finally confronted my pattern of behavior and what was at the root of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you had a support in your wife, in your future wife.
I had a lot of support.
Yeah.
But Dana, my wonderful wife, who also, like, it wasn't perfect immediately. Like, you know, we met and I still, you know, had like bouts of self-destructive behavior and stuff like that. And she was patient with me and came to it from a place of love, where before, you know, I think people came to it from a place of hurt. So, but you can't ask that of someone.
Right.
If you're not asking that of yourself
Right.
at the same time, right?
You dedicate the book, I noticed you talk so well of your parents, which is very sweet.
Yeah.
Your mom would support you no matter what you did.
That's right.
And you got your sense of humor from your dad, which is wonderful.
Both of them. I credit them both. I credit them both.
So great to meet you, Lisa.
Likewise, thank you.
You have a book event, and it is tomorrow, as I understand, tomorrow at 3 o'clock at Palace City of Books on Burnside. The book, again, is titled T-Shirt Swim Club, because we all know what that's like.
Yes.
Putting the T-shirt on when you're fat. Then you get in the pool and you come out and it makes it worse.
It clings to your body.
It doesn't help.
It accentuates.
Doesn't help. Thank you both so very much.
Thank you for
being
having us.
open and honest. I appreciate that. All right, we'll be right back with more AM Northwest. Don't go away.